norms and stereotypes to making sure that the butts are wet. Boy, girl, mom and dad want grown-up time, you're going mad. It's a trip, but we'll guide you through with tips and tricks for boys and girls too. Welcome to Boy, Girl, Mom.
Welcome.
I'm Lauren.
And I'm Nick.
Made me want to sing the Welcome to Illyria from, is it, oh my goodness, the name is escaping me. It's Amanda Bynes.
It's funny that you think
she's the man.
Know.
She's the man. Woo.
Obviously, she's the man. That's what I was going to say.
Such a quotable movie. Love. Welcome back. We're so glad you're here. This is episode 17. 17, and it is called...
It's called My Regrets in Pregnancy and Postpartum.
You have regrets in your pregnancy and postpartum?
Yeah. You know what? It was a journey for me. I used that joke last night at game night with somebody.
Oh.
They were like, oh, like you've got twins. How are you doing? And I like put my hands on my stomach. I was like, it's been a long road, but I'm doing well. They liked it, you know. Gotta have friends that laugh at your back.
I had a new teacher at Pilates this morning, and she came over to me because I was modifying, and I don't do crunches or really anything like that. And she was trying to make me do the harder move, and I was like, I have diastasis recti, and she was like, oh, did you have a baby? And I was like, yeah, I had twins. And then I felt kind of judged because she asked how old they were, and I said they will be 2 in October, and I kind of see her face like, okay, so it's been almost 2 years, but it took me like a year and a half to feel, quote, even normal or like myself. And I didn't get cleared to work out until 6 months postpartum just because of how bad my diastasis recti was and all of that jazz. But anyway, I persevered. It was a hard class, but I did it.
Yeah. Good.
I was listening back to our episodes. I'm still a little behind. I know our newest episode dropped this morning. It's Wednesday. I know we're recording and you'll listen to this like further from this date, but I'm behind.
For so 2 weeks.
I'm behind on listening to our own stuff because I like to listen to it fresh. And when I was listening to, I guess this would be episode maybe 14 and 15, I was like, whoa, Nelly, Lauren, you pulled out the like Valley girl, and that is not me.
I don't know. Sometimes is you. I think that's what we're seeing.
No,
just lay back into it like
no. It was gross for me to hear, and I know I'm not always like that just because I've edited my own YouTube videos and stuff for years, and usually I'm just a perpetual person, but wow, it was like grossing me out. And I just said like, oh my gosh, it's like a drinking game. Please drink a sip of water every time you hear counter? Me. Yeah, we should have a light counter. But if you do drink a sip of water, maybe it'll just help you be hydrated all day long. So I'm just going to say you're welcome. You're welcome. Speaking of speaking though, one of the people who I love how he speaks, his name is it Charles Gross on TikTok? I'll link his account, but he has a very soothing voice and he pauses versus saying and it's just fantastic to hear. And I actually saw the other day he is launching a relaxation album on Spotify and Apple where just him speaking, and I want to go listen to it because I'm sure it's fantastic. Just the way he talks is great.
That's interesting. That's going to be good.
Yeah. Okay, another fun thing that I want to talk about today is that it's new for us is we're using iPads.
Oh yeah.
And we recently had episode 16 come out. It's controversial things, or maybe 15. I don't know. Controversial things we talked about as parents, and we talk about screen time a little bit, but we bought these iPads just because we have a long flight coming up this fall, and we just wanted to have them as backup to keep the twins happy because it's going to be like 11 hours ish. And yeah, they're our iPads, but the twins will be using them for that. I remember when I bought my first iPad, and it was around the time Netflix was really becoming popular as far as the streaming service versus whenever you would just mail the DVDs back. And the first show I ever binged was, do you remember? Trivia about my life. Breaking Bad. I binged that. I remember like in my bedroom, I binged that on my iPad, and that was the first show I ever binged. The other thing, since we're talking about being controversial with kids, something that I looked back at our notes, and again, I haven't listened to the episode fully yet just because I'm behind. But I looked back.
Can I just for a second, when you say behind, it really frustrates me sometimes because behind is against the standard you've set in your own head as though you're not doing your homework and turning it into yourself like you're the teacher. It's not just behind. You just haven't gotten to it yet, and that's okay.
Thank you.
You don't have to be behind on it.
Well, I like to be listened up by the time we record.
Which is amazing. But do you not agree that saying behind makes you feel like you've got
A chef.
mountain of
It makes
work
me feel
in
like a
front of
chef.
you?
There we go.
That's a different kind. We
you can
like
just
that
laugh.
kind of behind. We like that kind of use of the word behind.
Yes, we do. And actually, we were with friends the other weekend and Nick kept saying behind because we were all cooking in the kitchen. And they're like, okay, Nick, you can stop. I was like, no, he's not doing it because of his show or anything. He literally has always said behind in our kitchen. And we typically have had small kitchens except for one. And so it's just like being courteous. And he has always said behind just from his background in restaurants. So anyway,
Shout
go
out
watch
to restaurant people.
Yeah. And like we said before, go watch The Bear if you haven't already. Back to controversial. And I just looked and it was episode 15. Controversial things we did with our kids. I was looking back over my notes and something I didn't call out specifically that is somewhat controversial is travel. We talked about taking them places where they're not necessarily, quote, welcomed, unquote, like planes, people get mad at you and you bring them, or like a nice restaurant type of thing. But I didn't outright say travel, and I feel like we do kind of break the norm with that. And, you know, it doesn't have to be flying 11 hours, just even driving an hour and a half on a road trip or something. This past weekend, we spent the whole day out. We drove to San Diego in the morning and went to the aquarium in La Jolla. Mm-hmm. And then we went back to San Pedro and attended the SailGP race. So, and even we kind of looked at ourselves sometimes and we're like, why are we doing this again? Because
it was fun.
It was fun.
Context. I forgot the stroller.
That wasn't a problem. That wasn't, I don't think
it made the day harder than it should have.
Yeah, I agree. But it wasn't the part that was hard for me. We made it work. The part that was hard is just we were in the car a lot and the traffic time kind of like bumped up against us too, which is fine. But I just wanted to say that travel is controversial.
Yeah.
And that's the other reason why I like to listen before we record is I can give little updates onto thoughts I've had since we recorded. So,
which is great.
Anyway, I'll be caught up. No, I won't be caught up next time. We're recording again this week. It's a double whammy, double header. But
are we setting unrealistic expectations of ourselves?
No, I just said I'm not going to be caught up. So anyway,
well done.
High five. All right. You want to talk about our TIFF?
I would love to talk about our TIFF,
okay.
Although I don't think it's a TIFF between us.
It's not.
I'm reading it correctly.
It's not. You're correct. We've done it before where we're on the same side of our TIFF and we're on the same side again. And I wanted to, I had written this down as an idea and I thought it would be good to talk about this week just because pregnancy, postpartum, often you're like sweaty and you don't want to be touched. And the whole point of this is that the tip is when you're sleeping, if you sleep in the bed with another person, do y'all touch at all when you're sleeping? And the answer for me and Nick is yes. And like all of our friends are a resounding no.
Is it all of them?
I think it's all of them.
Can we, when you say touch, can you like, it's cuddle is what we're talking
cuddle,
about.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cuddle is what we're talking about.
Yeah. And we sometimes fall asleep that way, but we are cuddling or touching, like if we're not cuddling, my legs are touching or something like that. And I know a lot of people are like, don't touch me, especially in the postpartum period of just heat and having to wake up and your rhythms being off. But we want to hear from you guys. Are you a strictly do not touch me?
I'm curious if we're like 10% or like 5%.
Yeah, I feel like we are probably going to be in the minority. I guess we don't really have anything to riff on with that just because we're on the same side.
I mean, we're on the same side, yeah.
Pro cuddling. All right, want to get into the episode? So, that was a very nice snap.
Thank you.
So, the whole thought process behind this specific episode was one of our most popular episodes that we've done is episode 8. And this is kind of an encore of that. That episode was called What I Wish I Would Have Known Postpartum. And I do encourage you to go listen to that if you have not. I don't want to say it's about body image and things like that, but it's from a male and female's perspective and kind of what Nick learned along the way and we learned in communicating. And I think it's a good listen for anybody.
I would say we both learned a lot.
Yes, but it's not. Yeah. So my whole point is that you can send it to, males in your life because it might help them understand you better and what you're going through. And that's kind of what we want to do. We want to help you break through the barriers that might be there just because it's sometimes hard to understand each other, especially when they're not experiencing what you're going through themselves. So anyway, this is an encore to that. And to kind of start off, I wanted to read a quote, and Nick is so excited because I can just click through my link on my iPad and read it to you. And I loved this. This is from an account. I will link it all in the show notes, but it's called Life After Birth. And it's an account here in LA. And it says, birth is not merely that which divides women from men. It also divides women from themselves, so that a woman's understanding of what is to exist profoundly changes. Another person has existed in her, and after their birth, the life within the jurisdiction of her consciousness. When she was with them, she is not herself. When she is without them, she is not herself. And so it is difficult to leave your children as it is to stay with them. To discover this is to feel that your life has become irretrievably mired in conflict or caught in some mythic snare in which you perpetually, vainly struggle. And that's a quote from Rachel Cusk, A Life's Work on Becoming a Mother.
That's a book, I assume.
I assume so. Yeah. What did you think? That I was like, I had to read it several times.
Yeah, I haven't read that yet. I think it's super interesting. It's a bit beautiful and a bit discouraging, you know, because it kind of like it talks about this bifurcation and how a part of you is with the kid and a part of you stays with you, but you can't really access both without being in concert with the other. It's scary from my perspective to read. Maybe I'm the optimist in me is
no, it's not discouraging is the word that I would use. I feel seen in that because I feel like it's this constant pull of like, I want to be myself and I want to do myself and somewhat mourning the old me, but I can't go back to that even if I'm alone without my children because I'm not the same person I was. They were born and I was birthed in a different way too. And so that's kind of, you know, I thought that was very fitting for this whole episode. And I titled it Regrets, no regrets, but things that I would have done differently. I think that I appreciate the journey that we've been on, and a lot of it I just wouldn't go back and do differently, but there are things that I wish I would have known. And so my hope with this episode is that one, you might feel seen in the regrets or thoughts that I have, but also it might prepare you to think about things you might want to do differently if you're in it right now. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of my hope for this. So I made a list. And I asked Nick too, and he has a thought on this too.
So this isn't a list of regrets. This is a list of either what you wish you would do or some things that you would have done differently. It's not just regrets.
Correct.
I'm reading it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So the first one it's a regret, but it's pretty trivial. It's not a big deal. Is that I wish I would have had a full-blown pregnancy shoot. We had a photo shoot. Correct. I had we took some photos at the beginning when I was, you know, just at the end of the first trimester. I was not really showing it all. And so I had those photos, and I take photos all the time. So I just was like, no, I don't need that. And I feel like you were good at taking pictures of me. My sister was really good at taking pictures of me. So I do have those candid, but I really did feel beautiful and pretty and strong when I was pregnant. And I wish I would have done that in images, like when I was towards the end of our road. And I really thought the twins were going to come early, just because that's typically what happens. And I made it full term, 38 weeks. And I think I also just didn't schedule that because people are like, don't schedule things like they're like, have your baby shower early. And so I had that, you know, when I'm right under 20 weeks, I think it was 19 weeks. And I have pictures from that too, but I just wish I would have captured that moment. I don't know if I'll be pregnant again another time. And so I just wish I would have had that. And I've seen people who, you know, their twins came early and they had one schedule that they weren't able to do, but now, you know, AI can produce those. So I guess I could do that. And I do have photos that I'm thankful for, but I wish I would have just captured that moment.
AI photo to me feels more like art than it does an actual memory, but I hear you. I'm curious, as somebody who has a great memory like you do you feel like you've lost like a piece of how to remember those times? Like you mentioned feeling beautiful and strong. You must remember that feeling and remember being in those moments. But what's so sad to you about not having photos from that time?
I think I've just always been a photo person, even before social media was a thing. I remember being in New York with my sister and my family in 2009 or 2008, that fall. We were there for the Thanksgiving parade. And I just remember, again, this is before, I guess Facebook was around, but very, very early. And so my sister and I were taking photos just to have these photos. And we would pose like, oh, here's with the phone booth. Oh, here's with this. And it was just, I've always liked photos and I like to look back on them and remember. And I think that I think I touch on this in a minute, but I don't remember a lot from that year of being pregnant. And so I can look at the photos and remember. I don't know why that just made me sad.
So the recommendation is do the photo shoot.
I would say book.
I'm not going to call out you crying because you do it.
I don't think I've teared up on an episode yet.
Talking about photos of yourself is what's going to do it.
That sounds so bad.
I'm making a joke. I know that's different. It's not what's capturing you.
Yeah, my recommendation would be book the photo shoot or have someone, I know photos can be expensive. Put on a dress or whatever makes you feel pretty. Have someone come over and take pictures on your phone. Just do it. And I do have those photos, that are on the phone, but I wish I would have set aside, we're going to take pictures for these 30 minutes or whatever. That's what I'm talking about. So just do the photos, take the photos. And I did have recommendations of take all the photos, but I didn't have a book the photo shoot or plan a photo shoot type suggestion. So that's what I'm telling you. Book the photo shoot. Okay. I need a minute.
Please hold and enjoy this soft voice while Lauren collects herself.
I'm going to squeeze in between my nose. Ooh.
It's okay. It's okay.
Ooh. Okay.
It was a good time.
Yeah. So the next
cute
one.
And strong.
Thank you.
You made some twins.
Yeah.
I remember I was there.
Mm. Okay. So the next one is the regret of going back to work so soon or too soon.
Are you talking about yourself?
Yes. Yes, I am. I work for myself, but at the time I had another client and they didn't pressure me per se, but in asking me several times, I did feel the pressure. And my personality is, I don't want to let people down. I don't want to disappoint them. I didn't really know how to handle it. And I had used up all of my, quote, paid time off, and they kept asking me when I was going to be back. And so I started working for them again. So it was like 14 hours a week, right around 2 months postpartum. And I wish I would not have done that. And I guess I didn't really know what to expect. I did go in very much like, okay, we'll see how everything goes, whether it be nursing or can't think of another thing right now, but just let's go with the flow and see what happens. And I wish I would have put my foot down with myself and not gone with the flow with that specifically. I say that knowing that a lot of people have to go back to work and they don't want to go back to work either. And so and in my case, though, I would have been able to stay with them and not, quote, go back to work, even though I was working from home. And so if you have the ability to stay with them and you want to, I would do that.
So I think there's a unique challenge with you working for yourself and being so self-motivated. The pressure you're describing, where you already kind of released the blame for it, like from your client, right? Mm-hmm. You still felt the pressure, which I think is interesting to me because that logically means you were the one putting it on yourself.
Yeah.
So, them asking you questions about a position and roles that you had and tasks that you knew how to do is normal. You choosing to answer them and choosing to go back is on you. And I'm not trying to blame you for it. I'm just saying, like, for people who are working for themselves, or you in the future, if we go through this again, put the capitalist business person in you aside. And, I think that's what you're saying, right?
I think
don't go back.
Yeah. I think I just wasn't ready yet. And I felt like I wasn't
ready to work
again, because I wasn't doing the work for myself. Like, I had stuff prepped that I kind of like edited here and there, but I wasn't really doing, my elements of style work in this time.
Well, I remember you going back for this client triggering you starting to work for yourself more.
Kind of, but it was like things that I wanted to work on and write down so I didn't forget.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I think also with this specific person, I felt the need. Let me give an example and then you can kind of read into that how you will. But before I left for maternity leave, I was in a meeting and it was with an outside vendor, and basically this person skipped over me, did not introduce me to this person, and basically said, "This Lauren's going to leave us to go become a mommy." And I was just like, what? And I, first of all, was flabbergasted. Second of all, I ended up basically talking and kind of running the whole meeting. So I felt like it was important for me to be introduced. But that was the same person who kept asking me repeatedly, when are you coming back? And I'd say, I don't know. And I just felt pressured, I think, to prove something to somebody who didn't matter. And so I just wanted to be like, I can do this. I can be a mom and work, and I can still do my job to the best of my ability type thing. So again, that's a me problem, but I just wish that I would have gone into it with a foot down firmly on what I wanted to do. I don't think I knew. So maybe I will say I wish I would have advocated for myself, but I also wasn't necessarily thinking straight.
And I think there's also a point of allegiance here to yourself as opposed to your company or your clients, right? So like, we obviously want to serve those people well, the positions well, the clients well. But when we're in a situation like this, where we're caring for a new baby, caring for an ill grandparent or a family member who's been through something or whatever, like, those things are always more important than the work that you have in front of you.
Yeah.
And while you may feel uncomfortable in not answering an email that you may have the answer to or something, so you can devote your attention towards the person in your personal life who actually needs it, that's okay. And, this specific situation kind of highlights that.
Well, I think also what you talked about before, I have a problem, which I'm getting better about, of choosing other people and their needs to the detriment of myself. And so I have to constantly think about putting my own mask on first.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at. So
I mean the air mask in the planes. That's
correct.
What you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, the oxygen mask.
Oxygen mask. So that is, why I'm listing this here, is because I want you, the listener, to be able to advocate for yourself and truly think about what's best for you.
Yeah. And I know, like, for people, I mean, you're talking about your perspective is working for yourself. Like, I know this is probably in a different way, uniquely difficult if you have a full-time role and you have a specific time off or whatever. Like, to me, if you're out on maternity or paternity leave, be out. Your company will be fine without you. It's different than working for yourself, because, like, if you stop, sometimes your money-making engine stops. Yeah. Sometimes, like, with your personal work, it's a little bit harder. That's a nuanced conversation. You're talking about with a client. I'm thinking of the full-time role. Like, take your time out. Don't answer things. If you have an incessant boss who's trying to pull you back into work, be direct and honest with that person. This is my opinion. And say, hey, I'm still out, and this time I need to devote time to my family and my kid. I can't answer you right now.
Well, and I think that you just experienced a very much an anomaly in this sector. Like, so Nick got 3 months of fully paid paternity leave. Wait, he got 3 months of fully paid paternity leave. And whenever we were in the hospital, and I was in that morning for my last non-stress test at like 8 a.m., and then they ended up scheduling me for my C-section at 8 p.m. We had basically the whole day. So I told him, do not rush up here. Finish what you need to. We have basically all the bags packed. He came up and then still continued to work, which I told him to, just to wrap everything up. And his client told him, like, get off of this meeting. Your wife's about to have the twins. Like, get off of the meeting. And that is not the case for so many people. So many people. And I also will say, just because I have friends, even like the companies I worked for in Texas that had, when I asked about maternity leave, they said things like, yeah, you have up to 12 weeks you can take and none of it's paid. And so I think that knowing that, I understand that it is harder for certain people to be able to make these quote sacrifices and do the things they might want to, and they might be financially strained in that. So not saying that, I'm just saying if you have the ability to do it, but also I know that we're coming from a very much a different spot most people are in.
You're right. And all the kudos and shout out to the company I work for and other companies who are similar in being a little more progressive in giving this time, especially to fathers. What I'm talking about, and didn't happen for me, like you just gave a perfect antonym example or opposite examples, like they were not only not reaching out to me during that time, but angry that I wasn't gone, So what I'm saying is, if most of us, I don't think, work for that kind of place, and you can still hold your boundary and hold your line working for a company that doesn't know how to keep that boundary unblurred. Like you can still, I don't feel like I'm being clear. Most of us are not going to work for that kind of place. So the advice I'm trying to give is for the person who doesn't work for that kind of place, still hold your ground, still keep your time out. Don't feel the pressure of having to answer everything. The company's not going to crumble without you. you'll be fine. And if you're at a place that's pissed that your maternity or paternity leave is hurting the company and they're trying to pull you back in, I know it's not super easy, but like maybe that's a sign for you that that's not a great place that actually values you.
Yeah.
You know?
And at the end of the day, I've said it before, it sounds very negative, but I've learned you are just a number to a company. I don't care how close you are with the president, the founder, the CEO, someone, the big dogs. They may like you, but at the end of the day, they're going to do what's best for their company. And I'm not saying that's bad, but you need to do what's best for you, just like they do what's best for them. So
yeah, and not in spite of them or anything. No. Like you're right. Like if you're in a position like this where you need to choose, like, hey, do I need to work for a few hours so that this thing's okay, or should I like get a few hours of rest so I can support my wife and my kid? Like. Do the second one.
Yeah.
You'll be fine.
Kind of leads me, I know I'm jumping around on our list, but I think it makes more sense in this order. It kind of leads me to another one I have written down is I look back and feel like I didn't savor the newborn moments and that I would have done that a little bit differently. But I also have to give myself grace in this and that I didn't know them. And so the connection I have to them now, I didn't experience, I know some mothers don't feel a connection at all. I didn't feel no connection. It just as you get to know somebody, you have a better connection with them. And so I just remember being so tired and I was in pain from my incision and I just wanted to sleep. And so there are times that I feel like I just went through the motion. And I do have good memories, but I'm like, I wish I would have savored it more. And I think that does play into the fact that I did go back to work earlier than, I think I wanted to. And I guess you don't really know how to savor it until you've done it before because it's all new. And I think also a thing that was a little bit different for us is that we did have 2 kids. So it was split. And I just feel like I wish I could have, like, I remember one baby was a little bit, had more trouble falling asleep. And so I felt I was more with them. And I'm like, what if the other one needs love too? And I did give them love and they ping pong. But I just feel like, oh, I wish I could go back knowing what I know now, but we can't do that.
Yeah. I don't know if it's healthy to call that a regret, but I think the advice you're giving is like, make sure you focus and do savor the time that you have so that you don't feel like you won't. And I don't know, like, I think all of us are going to probably feel a little bit of, did I have enough time? But that's almost more motivating to be in it when you're in it.
Yeah, no. And that's my suggestion here with that. So another thing I wish that we would have done, and my sister, who is a therapist, told us to do it. She said that we should do a couples counseling while I was pregnant. And I wish that we would have done
Why? We didn't have a single fight. What are you talking about?
I feel like it would have just prepared us more just because when you are postpartum, the hormones are raging. I've mentioned it before on here that a week after they were born is when my milk came in and that day was insane. You're going on low sleep. And I think the most you can do to help be on the same page with your partner and reduce possible fights, it would be amazing. But it also obviously strengthens your relationship too.
Counseling or therapy? I'm asking a question. Both? Just like a couple's attention to communication, or what are you specifically referring to?
I guess I know that a counselor isn't always a therapist, so I guess I just mean therapy, but I was using the word counseling.
I'm not against or promoting each one. I'm clarifying because counseling to me is slightly different, but I'm
using them interchangeably.
Like, yes. Okay,
and so
that's what I thought.
I know that they are not.
I'm not trying to nitpick.
Okay.
I was trying to say, yeah, I agree. Like therapy as well would have worked.
Yes.
Couples therapy. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
For yourself. But I was mainly talking about couples, but I think that it also would be really good for yourself just to check in, especially soon after in the postpartum period too, just to check in because so many things are going on. And I feel like I had an amazing doctor. And so it wasn't just, I know when women go in, they just, that first postpartum appointment, they go in and talk about how it's just a slip of paper. Like, are you happy or not? To check in on postpartum depression. And I didn't experience that. I have a doctor who asked more questions than that. She's like, when you think about the day, I forget what exactly she asked. Maybe it was like, if you look at the sky, is it blue or is it, dark and rainy or something like that. And so, more nuanced questions.
Remember your answer?
To kind of check in. I felt like it was blue.
I thought your answer was different.
No. I don't know that. Well, were you in there? You were in there for most of my appointments. I had more appointments just because I had the C-section. So I went in 2 weeks after to get the staple removed. And then I went in, I think, 6 weeks later to check on it again. But yeah. We can't talk about pregnancy and postpartum without talking about pajamas also. And one of my favorite sets, pairs, brands is Lunya. Specifically, their silk pajamas, though their other fabrics are very nice. But when I think back to postpartum and being, just milk stained and sweaty, I was in my Lunya pajamas, which are great because silk is natural and breathable, which is what you want in those times when your hormones are going crazy. Plus, it just makes you feel chic because you're wearing silk. I actually like to wear the tops out sometimes with jeans, just to further my investment. And you can too with using BGMAD code for 15% off on your order. Yes. Please try them out and let us know what you think. They have some great styles coming out this season, but also their classic t-shirt set is my favorite.
You'll get it. They look great. And you look great when you're wearing them.
Oh, thank you. Okay, sticking to boundaries. I think this falls under the same thing as similar to going back to work before I was ready. And I think you just need to be able to set boundaries, or at least think about the boundaries before. And again, maybe you're not equipped yet because you're not sure of how you're going to feel, but I would just kind of try to figure it out and try to be on the same page with your partner, which I know can be hard, especially if you are wanting different things, but also that's where the couples counseling can come in too. But I think that a lot of stuff will be thrown at you, whether it's, again, from work, from friends, from family, and just trying to figure out what your boundaries are, what your pillars are. And it can be hard. I wish that I would have had more boundaries and more things in place of just support so that I could make a decision better for me. I know it's being super vague, but yeah.
Yeah. I wrote draw boundaries and hold boundaries. I think there's a lot of things that you're obviously dealing with, either parent, during this postpartum period, right? Immediately after, added conflict as a result of not drawing and holding boundaries, you just don't need. And that's not to say that the people who are participating in the conflict with you or you're having conflict with, it's their fault or anything. It's just if you can do anything to try and avoid those things. I don't mean avoid the arguments or the discussions. I mean, be very clear, be thoughtful about what you want, what your preferences are, especially in your house with respect to your new kid or new kids. Communicate those things with your partner, get on the same page with your partner. We've talked about this before. Communicate those things to the people who are coming in to support you in your new stage of life. I feel like a lot of arguments and fights can be curbed by having those conversations up front. Hey, we're not kissing the baby's face right now. We're feeding with this kind of bottle. I know you did this differently with me. We're trying this way, parents, in-laws, friends, everything, setting those boundaries early. You can't control everybody else's behavior, but you can control whether you're clear in your communication about those things. Because missed expectations is the source of a lot of fights. So if you don't tell people, hey, we're not doing this, before they start doing it, then they're going to have no idea what you want to do. And they're not going to feel like they're breaking your rules when they just try and help raise your kid or help support you. So it's almost unfair to be mad at them in those moments, unless you already clearly communicated and then they're still stepping over the line. So yeah.
And I feel like you're allowed to change your mind and add on, quote, rules or boundaries as you go. And I think that's where it gets kind of sticky as you realize things. It gets hard. And I think you have to be able to not be afraid to hurt their feelings, because you need to do what's best for you. And I'm not saying do things in a hurtful way. That is a whole separate topic. And we aren't suggesting that, but even doing things in a nice way can hurt people's feelings, but you shouldn't be worrying about that at the detriment of your family and your health.
Yeah. I would say don't worry about their feelings. Just make sure you're communicating clearly and you're being kind. Don't get mad at people for not understanding or not doing exactly what you want them to do. And recognize that you're in a pressure cooker of a situation. So don't take it out on somebody when they're not meeting your expectations.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Agree. Oh, you want to do the next one?
Accept help from friends earlier is the next bullet point. We've talked about this a little bit with respect to childcare and, you know, your friends around you who may not have kids. But something I would definitely do differently is like, I think we had a lot of difficulty with twins and with being away from our families and like a lot of things outside of our friends that were very tough to figure out when we were getting in this new stage of life. So like, honestly, like we had so many people who were asking to do things and asking to help. We accepted some, but not as much as we could have. And I think for me, a lot of the reason I didn't accept it, it wasn't like a conscious no. It was just like, I have so much other crap I'm dealing with right now. I'm not going to think about some of our best friends asking to help, you know? So it wasn't like, no, thank you, or I'm not accepting it. It wasn't like I was drawing some negative line. I just wasn't thinking about it. And I think considering it and leaning towards accepting the help when you can is really important.
Yeah, we had friends give us coupons like, here's a date night, here's a coupon to go run an errand, here's this. And we only recently, and the twins will turn 2 in October, maybe 2 months ago, took them up on the watch the kids for us.
Yeah.
And part of it was because like, we're like, guys, we want to hang out with you. We don't want you to come over and watch the kids. I mean, we do, but we want to hang out with you. And another example would be like those same friends gifted me a pedicure after the twins were born. And I only again, October 2021 is when they were born. And I didn't use that pedicure until I think it was May 2023. Yeah. So make the time, ask for the help. I think what's hard is in those early moments, you don't necessarily know what you need and you kind of need someone to just do it. And, or it's too exhausting to delegate and explain what to do. Or at least for me, that's how I felt. But if you have people who are willing, maybe there's just easy things that can always be a list. If there's dishes, do them. You know, you can heat me up food. You can cook me food. You can bring me food. That's always a good answer.
Yeah.
You can hold the baby while they're crying, not just while they're fun and having, you know, cute sleepy snuggles. While they're crying is where we need the help. So I can go take a shower. So I can go on a walk. That type of thing.
I would also say like,
laundry too.
Yeah, laundry's a good one. If you're feeling like your answer is no or no thank you, consider an alternate request. So like if they're saying, hey, can I help watch the kids for tonight? But you know, like in this stage, like there's a lot of bottle stuff you would have to teach them. And like it would be more of a burden for you to teach them how to help than it would be to accept the help. Don't just say no. Say, thank you so much. I think it would help more if you did this and suggest another thing. So you're still accepting help in general from the person who's offering it. And they will have no problem with stepping into the other thing, right? So for example, if somebody's like, hey, do you want me to help feed the baby for an hour or whatever? And you know, that'd be difficult. Maybe you're breastfeeding. Maybe it's something they can't do. I don't know. Like, oh, thank you so much for the offer. I'm going to do that. But if you could, like, can you empty the dishwasher really quick? Or can you go get me a coffee? Or can you just hang with me on the couch or whatever?
Yeah, to have someone to talk to.
Yeah. So just because you're not comfortable with the specific request they've given you doesn't mean you don't need the help and shouldn't accept the help. It just means that one thing is too much for you to handle, which is okay. Just flip the question back to them. And like, as somebody offering that help, I would love to hear like what would help you more. Cause that's what, as the person offering the help, I want to help. I don't care about the specific thing typically. I care about being able to help you. So if you're going to give me like, no, but here's something that would actually help me better in this moment, that should make me happier. I feel like that would make me very happy and I would want to do it.
Another idea.
That makes sense?
Yes.
I feel like I brambled.
No, it was perfect. Another idea would be to have them come over and basically shadow you while you're doing it. So it's not, so they learn that way. Or create a note on your phone that you can share with whoever's coming over. That's basically the baby's schedule, which I know can change, but you can edit it in real time. Like, these are the nap times. These are the things I need to do. And so that would be, I'm just thinking of this on the fly, but that'd be amazing to be able to share. So one, they know basically the schedule that you're going to have and what they can help with at a certain time, or when you would want things to be done, or when you need food heated up, or that type of thing, or you need a snack, that type of thing. So that'd be a great idea as well.
Yeah. Think of it as like the fridge notes for the people who are helping you that don't have to stay in your fridge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The next one's kind of trivial again compared to everything else, but I wish on my birth wish list, which I still need to share, I've been meaning to post that just because I feel like I did a good job with it. And I call it wish list versus birth plan. Just from my doctor, she said, make a list of everything that you want and you need to be okay if it doesn't happen, right? So that's why it's called a wish list, not like it has to go this way or everything's shambles. But on my wish list, I wish I would have asked them to do footprints. We didn't get that. I know like some places, the hospital, we didn't get those. And so I'm not like completely torn up about it, but it's a kind of question mark in my head.
Is that something they do? I'm asking because I don't know.
I think so. And I don't know if it's different. Like we were in the OR. They never left our side because they didn't have NICU time, but I didn't have that. And so I do have a footprint in their baby books that I have not worked on since they were born. It's on my list.
You being mean to yourself right now?
No, it's just something, a weight that I have on my shoulder. You see how my left...
feels like you're pushing on your own shoulders.
You feel how my left shoulder just a little bit lower? That is the weight of
What I see is your hand pushing on that shoulder right now. That's
well,
what I see.
I need to make the time to do it, but still a little time. We have their footprint in the books that we just bought a stamp pad and did it ourselves. And so that's special to me and we have it. But I kind of wish I had the footprint. So maybe put that on your birth wish list just to make sure that it gets done.
Yeah.
And then the other thing...
just one second. That could be something you ask the hospital ahead of time too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much we've talked about that. Birth plans and setting your expectations with the hospital. But that is something you could ask ahead so you don't have to like frantically ask in the moment or just after and then be disappointed if they can't do it.
Maybe in your tour or whatever.
Yeah.
We took a C-section class and so we could have definitely asked that question in there.
Yeah, because we knew that was
most likely going to happen. Yeah. The next thing is also something I would have maybe had on my birth plan. And I have diastasis recti, which is where it's also called DRA, where your abs are split apart. And it's from the stretching in pregnancy, but also whenever you have a C-section, they go through, I think it's 7 layers to get to the babies. And I had talked to my doctor about it and she was like, well, if you have another one, I can just suture your abs together. I want to be like, why didn't we just suture my abs together in the first place? And so I didn't know that was something I could ask. I'd heard of, celebrities having a plastic surgeon in there or something, or doing a tummy tuck or something like that, like while they're already in the operating room. But I know that has other complications, but I didn't realize that I could suture my abs together. So if you're having a C-section, you can always, again, it's a trivial thing, a physical thing, but I do have more pronounced bloating and sometimes pain just because of that, of the C-section and how my stomach is now. And so I would definitely ask that going back if they could just suture my abs together while they're in there.
My understanding is that it's not just cosmetic though. Like there are benefits, like it helps your muscles grow back together, right? It helps you be more stable in your core. So it's not, you're just mentioning plastic surgery and other things. I want to make sure people know this is not just a cosmetic thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I would definitely have put that on my birth wish list and talked to my doctor about that. I just didn't know I could talk about that. It really wasn't what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other things you wish you would have done differently or regrets?
Something that I'm happy that we did.
That's our next section. Our next section is things that we are glad that we did.
It was a partial regret as well.
Okay, go for it. You can kick off that section.
There are people most likely in your life that have gone through having kids and gone through supporting their spouses while they've had kids and family stuff while they've had kids. The recommendation is use those people as resources. So have the phone conversations with them, even if they're not super close friends in your life at that time. Reach out and talk to them. I got a lot of great advice and good perspective from the few people I did talk to during that postpartum time, but I could have done that more. And there are more people that I've had conversations with to date that would have been great to talk to closer to those moments. So it's not necessarily a regret. It's just like, like I've got a buddy from back in Dallas who's had twins and I didn't get to talk to him and get his advice and take, as much as I think I should have. So that's the regret or could have done better part.
To kind of build off of that, I always checked on my friends or people I knew who had children, but I wish that I would have checked on them more.
Yeah.
both in the pregnancy period and in the postpartum period, just because going through it, I'm just like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And just having someone check on you and see if you're okay, I think even if they don't respond, they see it. And just having that support and thought can literally make your day, especially when you're in the trenches.
You don't have to ask if they're okay. I think you're kind of saying this, but like just the message saying like, hey, thinking about you, hope everything's great.
Yeah.
Because like the person who's in it, you like after pregnancy, right? You can choose whether you're going to respond or not, but like the question can feel like pressure a little bit where you have to respond and feel like you have to have a conversation. But just seeing, to your point, somebody saying, hey, I know you're in it,
yeah,
it's good.
Oh, that's another thing regarding boundaries. I mean, after kids, I feel like my text messages are like, I'll get back to you in 3 to 5 business days. And they've become more like emails to me. And I feel like there were texts and stuff that we received, very sweet ones too, but just different kind of text messages. And you are okay to respond later to those. You don't have to, go in what word am I looking for? You don't have to supply their demand and things like that regarding children. You can make your own decisions and not feel bad about it.
Sure. We have different positions on text messaging in general. I know I'm the extreme who doesn't answer very often, and I have a lot of backlog of text messages, but the intent of a text message is to be responded to later. So for those of you who have Slack and feel like your whole work life is you have to respond to your boss and your other people that you're working with immediately, to your point, don't treat your text messages that way. It's okay if they go unanswered or you answer at a later date, to your point. That's okay. Don't feel pressure.
I feel like I always felt pressure to respond. But now that
you still do, but you've gotten better.
I've gotten way better. I think let's see how many texts I have right now.
I don't want to play this game because I'm going to lose.
Well, you may win.
I have do not disturb.
I have 15 texts right now, which is I had 40 the other day, so I've gotten better. But I also love that there's finally an unread feature.
Gosh.
But yeah. Okay. So into the things of what I'm glad I did, what we're thankful for, that type of thing, what we would do again in pregnancy and postpartum. My first one is that I'm glad that I read books. I know that nothing will prepare you like the experience, but I'm still glad that I read books. And again, if you don't have time to read books, you can listen to them. And one of my favorite my number one that I suggest to people is Expecting Better by Dr. Emily Oster. She is an economist. And so she looks at all of the studies and things like that, whether it be screen time or eating deli meat while you're pregnant type of things, and just looks at all of the studies and tells you whether they're inconclusive and things like that, so you can make better decisions for yourself and be informed versus just scared about something. And so again, you can listen to it, but if you're going to listen to one book, that's the one for me.
Are you talking about before or?
Yes, before.
So for those of us who have like full-time jobs and other things that are going on as well, which I know we're all busy, I didn't have as much time as I should have taken to read books, but I got a lot of value out of talking to people who had been through having kids, regardless of how long ago it was, and gaining wisdom and recommendations from them. So I know it's a little bit different, not saying it's better or worse than reading books, but just if you feel like you're not a reader or you're not somebody who has a lot of time to do that, even if it's an audiobook, have those conversations between what you're doing and glean some wisdom. Okay,
but the book you did listen to / read was How Not to Hate Your Husband After Kids, and we both really enjoyed that one.
Oh, yeah, and I am not recommending not to read.
No, I know, but I'm just remembering that is one that you did do, and I thought it was really good. It's fairly short, and so that was a good one. Another one I know that I'm glad that I did while I was pregnant was rest. I didn't do as good of a job postpartum, but I said it before, I basically put myself on voluntary bed rest where I stayed in bed basically all day. And I think that was helpful for rest and helpful for the twins as they grew, but just remember to rest. And I know that that's harder, especially if you have other kids or toddlers specifically running around, but again, if people are offering help, take it and just rest as much as you possibly can. And I'm not going to say because you won't get it afterwards when they're here. I'm just saying it's good for your body and for the growth that's happening. I'm really glad I rested.
Yeah.
Along those lines, I wore compression socks since the first trimester all the way into the end, much to Nick's dismay. And I say dismay because I would wear them in public. I remember I was very pregnant. I looked like I had a basketball in my stomach at a Dodgers game in the summer heat. And I had my compression socks pulled like all the way up to my knees and my denim shorts or whatever. And I proudly wore them because they helped. My legs and calves just would ache. And also, obviously, it helps with circulation and swelling and all that. But I wore them religiously the entire pregnancy, and I didn't wear any special ones. I just bought like 2 packs off of Amazon. So
I didn't care about that as much as you think I did. I just thought it was funny that it was so often that you needed to wear them. That's my point.
I didn't sleep in them, but I wore them all the time.
Yeah.
Another thing I'm kind of thankful for, which I know people talk about in afterbirth specifically, you just kind of forget the pain and anything like that. And I really don't remember much of 2021. And I'm kind of glad for that just because I didn't feel well the entire pregnancy. And so it's kind of a blackout of like, I don't remember that. I don't remember who I was. The people I met that year, I'm like, sorry, I don't know who you met, but I'm glad you're still around and you're still my friend. Because we met like a lot of our core group in LA while I was pregnant, and it just was not who I am today or before. I would sit on the sidelines a lot. I was tired and I rallied. I did get some appreciation, like rallies, like, oh, you really. A
ton of appreciation. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just saying I didn't like sit out, whatever, but I definitely listened to my body. But I'm kind of glad I don't remember some of it because we don't even need to talk about throw up, but I have the memories and I can laugh about it now. And so I think that's what I'm glad for, just like how the brain works.
Yeah. I remember a lot of that year. Obviously I didn't go through the same things you did. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of like, I think that response you talked about where like with mothers specifically, you forget the things that are tough in a different way than you do other, difficult things in your life. Mm-hmm. After you've had kids. I have a lot of that too. So like, I know we had tough arguments. We had really tough mm-hmm. low sleep days and weeks. Like we had challenges with the kids. And I remember that those happened, but the memories I have from that year are not those things.
Yeah. One of my, I don't want to say core memories, but I've said before, we both are obsessed with my OB, Dr. Shamsa Mercy. And I remember being on the operating table. They've already taken the twins out and they're starting to stitch me up, which takes the longest. It took like 45 minutes, I think, compared to just the 2 minutes it took to get to the babies. And my body was shaking, which it does after birth. And I didn't realize it would do it because I guess I'm like, I know I didn't go through a quote natural pregnancy, but my body was still reacting like I did. And I remember trying to hold, like I'm have drugs, right? I have the epidural and the spinal. And I remember trying to actively make my body not shake. So I was like, oh shoot, they're sewing me up. I need to make it easier for them, right? Again, I'm the one on the operating table. How can I make it easier for them? And Dr. Mercy looked at me and she said, shake, let it shake. I know you're trying to not shake. I need you to like, let it shake. And that is metaphorically beautiful in a lot of ways of just like, let it happen, like, let it be. And, she was there supporting me and like comforting me while she's sewing through all the 7 or so layers.
It's good. We haven't talked about that. I don't remember.
Really?
That. Well, I remember that happening, but
I think you're probably maybe with the babies.
Well, sure. I remember that happening. I'm saying we haven't talked about that being a significant thing before.
Yeah. Let it happen. And she had me. She got me.
It's also interesting what you said that like you're clearly like vulnerable and being served and you're still like worried if the people helping you or like if you're hurting them somehow mm-hmm. when they're all there to help you, Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah. Okay. The next on my list was basically I've already said it, so we don't need to go into it, but I'm just really thankful that I felt like beautiful and strong and all of those things during pregnancy. Even though I, was vomiting, I did feel like beautiful and strong. And I think I'm thankful for my journey. I was very anxious just from a previous miscarriage. I was very anxious throughout the whole pregnancy, plus twin pregnancy being higher risk. And I'm just really thankful that I can look back and think that.
You were pretty cute.
Another thing we're thankful for is that yes, I had a high risk pregnancy, but it had very low complications until the end. They took me a little bit early because my platelets were low, but I guess I'm thinking low complications with the babies. They didn't have NICU time, so we didn't have to experience that. And my heart aches for those who have to go through the NICU time and even leave their children. I know a lot of multiples have to go through that and singletons too, but we really expected we were going to have like maybe a week of NICU time. And they ended up being full term for twins and didn't need any help with that. I'm also thankful for teamwork and for having you, because we make a good team.
We do.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me of the Reliant K song. We should get jerseys because we make a good team.
Oh.
But yours would look better than mine because you're out of my league. Da, 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 da. Anyway,
that's what I say about you.
I know. Travel. I'm glad that we traveled. And it was hard in those
You're talking about before and after.
Yes. I'm more so talking in the postpartum period. We traveled.
Yeah.
Like when they were 5 weeks, we drove to Paso Robles and had a little winery weekend. And I'm just really glad for those memories and things like that. And that we did it.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm. And then the last thing I'll mention, I'm sure I'll think of more and I'll update you next week or whenever I end up listening to this episode back, is I'm glad I did physical therapy. And even if you didn't have a C-section, you can look into physical therapy, and I think it would be really beneficial, whether it's pelvic floor. If you have a C-section, they can also massage the knots that often go in your stomach. But I went to a women-specific physical therapy office, and it's called Origin. You can do video conferences with them in a lot of places besides California. But I'm just really thankful for that. And I would encourage you to look into that regardless of your birth situation, or even if you haven't been pregnant before or don't have kids, they still work with women. And a lot of women don't know that, how to strengthen their pelvic floor and things like that.
Yeah. It's a good one.
Anything else?
I mean, there's probably more, but that's a good list.
Yeah. Okay. So I have another, you can click through if you would like.
Ooh.
I have another just fun little, a bunch of quotes that I saw this from the account, The Dad Vibes. And I'll, again, link this in the notes. But there were 5 parenting quotes that will make you think. It's not the child's responsibility to make life easier for the adult. It's the adult's responsibility to make life easier for the child. Yeah, it can be hard to think about, especially when you're in the trenches, but it's true. Listen earnestly to anything your children want to tell you, no matter what. If you don't listen eagerly to the little stuff when they are little, they won't tell you the big stuff when they are big, because to them, all of it has always been big stuff.
Oof.
I have apologized to, I think it's Cypress specifically, where I've done it to Olive too, but I think with Cypress more, where he'll want my attention and I was not paying attention. I'm like, I get on his level. I say, I'm sorry, I wasn't listening. What do you need? And, it's a good modeling of, one, saying you're sorry and then correcting. And
that's good.
Okay. It's never okay to punish a child for exasperating behavior that is due to entirely underdeveloped brain systems. So just a toddler for being a toddler. We've talked about it all the time. In fact, we know they're not doing anything wrong and it's within their normality, I guess, to be doing it. And it means their brain can't process this big feeling, but that doesn't make it easier. But I think if you can be in the right mindset and remember that, it's very helpful.
Also, don't expect your kids to be adults if they're not yet.
Yeah. Thank you. That's a good one. Children should not be burdened with making us happy, nor blamed for making us sad or angry. Children are not responsible for how we feel. We are. I think that's something we're good at identifying, and just like, they're not doing anything wrong, or I'm just feeling overstimulated right now, and not putting it on them. Like, sure, they may have done something, but like with anybody in life, we are responsible for our own actions and feelings.
Was it you I was talking to about the difference in answers in new parents when moms are asked how they're doing compared to dads?
Mm-mm.
I don't remember where I saw this. I'll try and find it. But typically dads' answers were about themselves.
Oh.
And mom's answers were always rooted in their children.
Oh.
So like, if you asked the mom, like, how are you doing? And the mom had a stressful day or was feeling tired or whatever, they would say like, oh, like, Olive and Cypress were really tough yesterday. Like, they wouldn't give me this. They wouldn't do this. Like, I couldn't make them happy. It was just like, and what you're doing is giving data about how you, like, what contributed to a way that you're feeling, but you're not talking about how you're actually feeling. So if you ask the same question to the dad in the same situation, the dad usually says like, I'm tired. Mm-hmm. Or like, oh, yesterday was tough. Mm-hmm. And it's not that they're not considering their kids, but it's interesting because the dad typically decouples it's the kid's fault. And the mom sometimes unintentionally attaches to that and answers in kind. So you're not, like, if your friends are asking you how you're doing, you're not really telling them. You're telling them how your kids are doing and what your kids may have done to you as though they're doing it to you.
Do you think that loops back to the first quotation that we read at the beginning about how the kids are kind of always an extension of the mom since before they were born?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, here's the next one. Respond to your children with love in their worst moments, their broken moments, their angry moments, their selfish moments, their lonely moments, their frustrated moments, their inconvenient moments. Because it's in their moments, in their most unlovable human moments, that they need to feel the most love. I think that's something we all want.
Yeah. You're good at that.
No. Okay, here's another one. Parenting isn't easy. Our little ones can appear to be impulsive. They push boundaries and they assert their independence. But the fact is, our kids need to do these things. They need to test their limits to see how the world works, and they need to test their bodies to become stronger and more capable. Of course, this doesn't make it any easier for us, but for me, appreciating these facts allows me to be much calmer as a parent, and with that, respond more rationally to our little ones when they're having a rough time. Overall, parenting is all about progress and not perfection. Okay, this is another one that I loved, and it's called The Premise is Sharing the Mental Load Looks Like, ... And I think as women, we tend to always bear the mental load. It just feels like it's on our shoulders, whereas men, you have, we've talked about this before, I'm not just putting it all on men, that you're not necessarily thinking about that. Like, you may have other tabs in your brain, but, you know, I'm thinking about sending your dad a birthday card along with other things, and you're just not thinking about that yet. So anyway, sharing the mental load with someone looks like, I will take over planning the meals every other week. I researched the hotels for us and narrowed it down to 2. Here are some trips we can take based on both our schedules. I made the doctor's appointments for the kids, and I'll pick up their meds after work. Tell me everything you need help with. I will create the invitations and send them out for us. You're going through a lot, and I don't want you to have to worry about food, so I prepared everything and it's in the freezer. I will coordinate the next date night or family trip. And honestly, the comments are atrocious because people just can't understand, like specifically on the tell me everything you need help with.
That's what I was going to go back to.
But sometimes people also just need to be, you don't know. You can't read minds, not you, but people in general. And I feel like they're taking it negatively, probably because of a negative interaction with the partner that they have.
Yeah. We've had fights about this before where
Yeah,
I typically ask you like, hey, what do you need? What can I do for you? And that question frustrates you because you feel like you've already communicated those things, or you feel like I should already know.
Yeah, I know.
You're not that way, I would say, anymore. But that specific quote in a vacuum, I think you need to lay some groundwork before your partner's ready to hear that. But I mean, people who get mad at that, like if somebody is asking you, it means they're trying to help. So if you bark at them for asking that question, even if it does frustrate you, you're going to push that person's help away. And that's not what you need.
And the example we talked about previously on the podcast was, you know, you're like, okay, I'll make the twins dinner. What do you want them to have? And we've already talked about it, but you're trying to see, because I typically have more opinions on what they eat.
Right.
And whereas I'm like, you just told me you were going to take it over. And that is the mental load. Like, I can make it. Figuring it out is half the battle.
And like you saying, I don't know, is a completely
and I didn't know that
answer.
I could say I don't know. Okay. The last thing I'm going to share, we don't need you can click on it if you want, but it's a video, and it's from Dr. Becky Goodinside, who we've talked about before. But basically, I thought it was a really cool video based on the question that we had the other week about, can I make my kid not shy? And I was like, no. They're like, their suggestion was to like wave at people, and that would make them, or say hi to everyone in the room, and that would make them not shy, which is not true. And on that note, on our last plane ride, all of In Cyprus were both waving at people, and I took a video. First of all, when I posted it, people said things like, I can't believe like only one out of those people waved back at them, which is fairly normal. You can really see what mood people are in when a baby waves at them and they don't wave back. But
I would say 90% of people will smile if they see the baby.
Okay, but on this video, 1 out of the 5 did.
Yeah.
Very much lower than 90%. And they, both Olive and Cypress, can be shy in other moments. So it's not an either or thing. But anyway, Dr. Becky gave a video and she said, you know, shy can be confident. And that means like fast forward when they're 16 and their friends are maybe doing some questionable things, you don't want them to just like jump in and do what everybody else is doing. And that's essentially what you might be telling them when they're shy as like a toddler, of like, just go do it, versus when you feel comfortable. And so because they know what they like and don't like, they're more apt to make better decisions for themselves in the future, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Something that's interesting for me as I've grown up is like, for a long time as a kid, I was kind of told indirectly, like, oh, you're so comfortable with people and you're such an extrovert, as though it was the preferred state. Which, like, do I love that I have some people skills? Absolutely. Do I think there are some skills that you can foster to get better with people and public speaking and being in a crowd or whatever. Like, yes, but do I think that that makes you better than an introvert? No. So, it's interesting that we think of a shy kid in some negative light as though it's somehow worse than the kid who's not shy.
Yeah, definitely societal. Okay, we don't have an Ask BGMAD question to end on, but I want to just mention something that I experienced yesterday. And I have been asking people, like, was there anything you would do differently? Like this topic of this podcast, is there anything you would do differently in pregnancy or postpartum? And one specific answer I received, they said, no, I'm really glad with how it all happened. And then they paused and they said, I wish I would have started sooner having kids. I was very career driven and I had my career, but now once I had my child, like the career doesn't even matter anymore. And I did take a step back from it. And so now trying to have number 2 is just harder. I'm older and I wish I would have started sooner. And I think that backs into what I've been preaching for years now of check your hormones, get your hormones checked. Hormones are a vital part of your wellness. And it doesn't matter if you're trying to conceive, your hormones can be out of whack and guys too, but specifically women, and it can affect a lot of things, and knowledge is power. And so if you're getting your hormones checked, you can also ask for an AMH panel to be done within the hormone panel. And that basically is your anti-Müllerian hormone. And that's what your predicted egg reserve is. And so you can know, like, this will be, like I said, knowledge is power. You'll know kind of a picture where you're predicted to be at. That coupled with, you should have a vaginal ultrasound done too, to like look at everything. Cause for me, my numbers look worse than my actual body looks when you take a look at it. And so my whole point is to learn about your body and know where you're at so that you can make better decisions for yourself.
Yeah. Be informed.
Mm-hmm. Be informed.
There's one, I didn't speak fast enough. Remember the advice we got from multiple couples before we started having kids? It's the hardest and best thing you'll do. Mm-hmm. And you'll wish you did it sooner. Yeah. So it reminds me of what the person you talked to.
And I don't know if I've said it before publicly, but we started trying earlier than we thought we would have because my AMH level was low. And so my doctor suggests. So I just wanted to say that.
We'll probably talk about that.
Yeah.
We also didn't really know why we were waiting when we had that conversation again.
I think for me it was travel and wanting to do things.
Sure. You're right though. That is what drove the conversation again.
Yeah, and we don't really remember life before it, and it wasn't better than it is now. Yeah. Anyway, I have to run to an acupuncture appointment that I'm going to be late to. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you got at least one helpful thing out of this. And if you did, if you wouldn't mind giving us a rating, you can give us a rating on whatever app you're listening to, or you can give us a like. You can comment on YouTube, and please send to a friend. You can find us at boygirlmom.com and boygirlmom.com, the website.
Yeah.
We'll see you next week, and thank you for going with us.
Bye.
Boy, girl, mom died. Gotta wash those butts together. It's a trip, but we'll guide you through with tips and tricks for boys and girls too.